well. The mid matchup up against the Zeus was phenomenal for Quinn. It was fairly even for Nothing to Say, but then they just stack in the supports. They punish Nothing to Say when he does overextend, and his game was just not there. Like, that was not the impact of a Zeus that you tend to see. Just kind of got run down. The only heroes or the only players that did manage to have something to play with was really Ame and Fate Beyond to an extent. And even that wasn't enough. Like, Ame was very well farmed, but that one mistake he had running down bot opened it all up. The chain stuns come in, and there's not much one Lincolns can do to stop. So we'll see how well PSG.LGD adapt, but they already do adapt in a way. Winter Wyvern is banned out, so they take away that tool after seeing Quinn perform in it in mid. And we'll see what else is left in store here. But Soniqs, I'm sure they've got contingency plans laid out here, Mike, considering how well prepared they are.
Yeah, but I think LGD has also got their own plans here, Jonathan. I mean, taking their first loss of the group stage, I'm sure they're going to be coming back here with a vengeance against Soniqs, and we'll see how well prepared they truly are here, John, because, well, LGD, you know, again, I agree. I think they had a very good draft last game, maybe a bit on the execution, not taking anything away from Soniqs, because they did do a great job of just focusing Nothing to Say that whole game and just not allowing him to do anything. We'll see if they can repeat it. You know, fool me once, but fool me twice. It's a different story here between Soniqs and LGD. So they do start with the IO once again. Which is a hero we don't get to see first phased these days in this current meta, but seems like Soniqs are seeing the value in it. Obviously, props to MSS, playing a fantastic IO last game around along with Yawar. And speaking of Yawar, considering you already have the IO, would it be so bad to go right back into the Bristleback?
No, I mean, LGD banned out the Viper themselves, usually the natural break that you'd want to play into the Bristle, so you have a pretty good time. With the Bristle just coming up here, I mean, you can kind of maybe look for ways of kiting it out, look for core matchups are a little bit more awkward for Bristle, but with the AI backing it up, it should still be a fairly safe pick for Soniqs. LGD straight into the DP along with that Tiny, though. So they've got better jump now. They've got some push coming out from the DP and a little bit more sustain coming out. And, you know, just a very strong laner to have. Bristleback laning into an off-lane DP from Fate Beyond. It's all right, but it's also not as dominant. Although, considering what LGD had last time with the Shadow Shaman Dawnbreaker, I'd say that was a bit more of a stronger showing. So if you manage to play against that one, you should be fine playing against Death Prophet Tiny.
Well, the DP, one of Nothing to Say's specialty heroes, of course, going back to some real comfort heroes. And Soniqs, they do go back to the Bristleback. And Yawar, again, fantastic game. Game number one. Bit of a rough laning stage against Faith Beyond, but able to just catch up and make his way back up in that net worth. LGD probably have a good idea of how to deal with this, considering they just went against it. But Soniqs, I mean, if it's not broken, you don't fix it, John. They're going to go back to what they know works here against LGD. Obviously, Bristleback has proven to be extremely potent in this current patch. So we'll see what LGD can get done here against the Bristleback to try and shut him down this game around. Any particular heroes you'd like to see against the Bristle, John? Like any, I know you already talked about the Viper being removed here by LGD. Anything else that you think that deals really well with this Bristleback?
Quincy Cruz, turn to ban.
Razor could be one response. Razor can still fit in. First phase ban out by Soniqs. You could try. It's a bit odder, but OD could be one way to kind of deal with Bristleback as well.
Yeah,
could be one way. Then again, OD's just kind of dead. So who knows if you'd want to pick it back up. You could still kind of play with a Meteor Hammer, but
I think just leave it dead, John.
A bit untested.
Leave it dead.
You could try, say, a support silencer in lane. Makes it more annoying for the Bristleback to spam his spells, but once he has a BKB, non-issue. Lotus Orb as well makes it a non-issue. So probably not the best to invest in that silencer. I think for LGD, just actually no. You know what? A PA could work out. Just buy the shards, natural break, burst damage to deal with IO could be a pretty fun way of dealing with that combination. Just jumping in and taking away the sustain on the IO, breaking the Bristleback. Good percent-based damage on those Fan of Knives as well. So that could be a way to respond to that, although you don't generally see PA as a bristleback counter.
That's fair, John. PA obviously not really in the meta at the moment either. Just haven't seen it picked up whatsoever here. Final banouts to come. We'll find out very soon what route they're going to go down. Last game round during the draft as well, I thought maybe the LGD side could have gone back to Terrorblade, right, against Bristleback. Just naturally high armor. I have Skadi Carrier, even against the IO is quite effective. You think TB's a bad pickup here for LGD if they wanted to go down that route, or?
I think the issue with the Terrorblade in the last game was all the single target control was still an issue, and the Weaver was a little bit less susceptible to that with its mobility. And if the Weaver was dying to that, the Terrorblade would have still melted from the chain stuns anyway. So I think the Terrorblade will have the same issue once a Blink Initiator comes out from Soniqs. LGD will go into the Dazzle instead. So they've got decent enough save. And that could enable a Terrorblade pick up much more, stalling out with a Shallow Grave and just getting a Sunder off. That sounds a lot nicer here for LGD to kind of secure Ame. Great way of fighting back, great way of counter-initiating when they do, if they do jump onto him on something like that Terrorblade. So I like that response from LGD. It's also fairly lane dominant. You love to point out, Mike, and Hero just kind of is hard to lane against naturally with a Poison Touch. Soniqs, though, into the Void Spirit. Our Quinn hero making its appearance. And that is a really good way of jumping the back line. Like, you do want the Dazzle out of the equation ASAP. Void Spirit can take care of that fairly quick.
That's a Quinn specialty right there, that Void Spirit.
5 seconds.
Speaking of, by the way, going back to the LGD draft for a moment, John, you know, the Dazzle being picked up by LGD always reminds me of that meta we had back in the day where you had the, you know the one I'm talking about, with the Necro books and the low cooldowns. And Faith Beyond's the guy I always remember when it comes to that offlane Dazzle. Back at eHome, back before LGD came along and picked him up. Oh, those were some funny days. Those were great.
Yeah, the Necronomicon. It was also like a Midas pickup, wasn't it? Like,
sometimes,
yeah, that was something that it also used to lose a lot. So I'm glad that's just
it did.
You know what? If it did lose a lot, maybe you should bring back Necronomicon, Mike. Bring it back. Play that offlane Dazzle.
It's not about the Necro this time, John. I'm just saying it was a previous meta with Dazzle. That's all I'm saying. Yeah,
it was fairly funny to see that in 50% cooldown, but bad juju changes kind of take out that fun. Soniqs with a Weaver here, so that should be, could be a support Weaver coming out. Wouldn't mind that too much. Minus armor playing with a Bristleback is great. The hold of LGD for a Weaver isn't particularly amazing. They don't have anything like the Blink Dragontail. Blink Avalanche is still effective. Then you've got the follow-up Silence on the DP. Shard on the Dazzle can help you out. So there's enough to punish the Weaver. But at the same time, and that could still just be a pause 4 Weaver, a pause 5 Weaver coming out here for Soniqs to kind of flex around. So still fairly open. They don't need to commit that onto Leslau for the offlane. And LGD, they still need like a big core to play with the Dazzle. Something that will enjoy the Shallow Grave. Considering Soniqs with his draft, they are sort of lacking control. And they do pick up the Kunkka this time around with the X back. So relocate save's not going to be as big of an issue with LGD now, as the Kunkka should be able to hold one part of the equation down. And is a natural Silver Edge builder as well for some break on the Bristle. Mid lane matchup against Void Spirit is fairly good here for LGD. If they will gun for that mid Kunkka, you tend to just have a great time as the Kunkka up against a Void Spirit anyway for the most part.
Oh, certainly so. Not a bad time whatsoever, if it is going to be the mid Kunkka, but certainly feels that way, that's for sure. Rather have the offlane DP in this circumstance, I think, for LGD. Final banouts, though, to come, Jonathan. It seems like both, or rather, LGD need a pause 1, Soniqs, maybe more so about the offlane for Leslau, assuming it's going to be a position 1 Bristleback coming out once again for Yawar. Leslau, again, last game around doing God's work on that Dragon Knight. Any particular heroes you'd like to see Leslau pick up, and maybe even a carry for Ame, Jonathan?
Still fairly open for the carry of Ame. The Terrorblade ID you mentioned, Mike, still works out because of the Dazzle. And being held down is not going to be as much of an issue. You're going to have ample time to just sunder away. So I like the Terrorblade response there. Honestly, PA could still work if they really want to go weird. But as you mentioned, very out of meta hero. probably not what you'd want. For Leslao on the off lane, you have a lot of options as well. You could look for a little bit more team fight, but then
10
again, you don't have
seconds
anything to tie into that team fight anyway, outside of just Bristleback spamming all
5
of his stuff on
seconds
top of you
remaining.
and getting a lineup for the swarm could still be effective. Mars plays pretty nicely into what they have on Sonics end if they want that. Although you would be picking a bit blind, not knowing what LGD's safe lane will be, so you might not get the best lane output here for Leslao.
Here we go, Sonics. Final pickup now. This will reveal how their draft's going to go. Do believe it is still the Leslao hero that needs to be picked up here in the off lane. Last game around, he played the Dragon Knight and certainly
10
could go back to
seconds
that
remaining.
if he really wants. But it doesn't really feel like it particularly
5
fits the
seconds
draft this time
remaining.
around. Sonics, maybe a bit more team fight to come with this off-lane pick. And they're going to go for the Dawnbreaker pickup. Fair enough. Even more sustained with an IO. That heal going to be pretty darn annoying to try and deal with.
I mean, you have 3 heroes that globally teleport in now, Mike. Relocate on 2, and then Solar Guardian on 1. Terribly does come out, as you pointed out way earlier there, Mike. And again, it's much more doable with the Dazzle, so Shallow Grave will allow Ame to sunder away.
I mean, it feels like comfort for LGD now as well with this draft, doesn't it, John? Like you've got a lot of heroes right now that we're really used to seeing LGD play.
Yeah, then go back to what used to work. I like the idea Sonics has, but I do worry about the fact that they might not have the easiest time dealing with a sustain from LGD, right? Like, you've got the boat to stall out if Ami gets jumped and nothing to say is nearby. You've got the X to hold back some Yawar if he does get relocated away, or if you manage to find Leslao trying to get the Solar Guardian in, X him, and just drag him back. It's really a solid Kunkka game overall, and I think LGD has what it takes to kind of beat up on Sonics. But I'll be honest with you, Mike, I actually lean slightly towards Sonics draft. I feel like, considering how they pulled off the last game, if they hit that same tempo, the same thing can happen. Like, the Bristleback can still have a really good time, but I'd say this time around, LGD's fighting chance is a lot bigger. Like, that Terrorblade hitting from a mile away, it's not going to be easy for Yor to get on top of that and just do the damage he needs to do, especially considering that base armor you mentioned earlier on.
Yeah, and it's a lot about the Eye of Skadi timing as well. Like, you're against IO, Dawnbreaker, Bristleback. All these heroes hate going against that Eye of Skadi, and, well, it's an Arme DP, an Arme TB, Jonathan. Like, it's this Terrorblade from Arme, it is not something to underestimate. Arguably one of his best heroes that we've ever seen, and let's see how this one goes. I'd say this is going to be a much harder matchup for Sonics going into game number 2, but considering how they went for game 1, that momentum, we'll see if they can ride it. Still, LGD, not to be dissuaded. One game ends up with a loss. Not a big deal for LGD. I mean, they're still top of the group stage, John. I'm sure they're not too concerned.
Yeah, I don't think that even if they lose the series, they're still in the running for number 1 anyway. So
yeah,
they have the allowances to actually just do that. Of course, they wouldn't want to. You want to prove a point here if you're LGD. You want to show just how scary you are and ensure that no one wants to ever play against you in those playoffs. Or if they want to play against you, that's just them wanting to learn. So we'll see. The comfort picks are looking strong on LGD. To be fair on Sonics as well, it feels like a lot of that momentum came from that really strong start for Quinn on the Winter Wyvern. It felt like that kit just worked out really well. Their single target control this time from Sonics isn't as amazing. In fact, their hold overall is kind of lackluster. It's only the Aether Remnant plus Starbreaker that they have to hold heroes down. So it's actually kind of scary for them to deal with this from LGD.
Leslao won't stick around too long. He's just going to back his way out. And another nice start here for LGD. 3 bounty runes to go their way. Arme, hands up, stickers down. Fada just slowly walking his Arme. Really wants to just get it in. Cute face of Sinku. Very, very cute man there, Sinku. Love to see.
Yeah, with that, we should start off with his top lane. Of course, Leslao on that Dawnbreaker, along with Fata on that Weaver, laning up against Y and Ame on the Dazzle and Terrorblade. This one, it's a bit of a weirder lane for Sonics, and you already have that level 1 Metamorphosis coming out. With a Poison Touch, you can run these heroes down. The synergy between Dawnbreaker and Weaver isn't that strong. Like, you can just Shukuchi and be annoying. There's no early sentry here from LGD to spot out Fata, at least on that further south side. They have a good ward up north. Man, they do manage to melt him down. I'm not particularly sure about what Soniqs can achieve here. Like, there's just no real play. There's nothing to set up for Starbreaker. There's nothing to follow through for that. You have some synergy with the Swarm and the physical output of Dawnbreaker, but that's a little terrible with a lot of armor anyway. It's not going to do as much to damage him down, especially when some stat items are up for Ame.
Absolutely. Mid lane, Quinn, nothing to say going at it already. 6-6, very even in terms of CS. There's nothing to say. Move in for the range creeper. We'll miss out. A CS lol moment there for nothing to say. This range creep's just so darn important. Quinn getting aggressive again here in the mid lane. The Kunkka's going to be fine. As bot lane, Yuan MSS against Faith Beyond and Singq. We haven't really talked about too much yet. So far, going decently it seems for Yuan as Faith Beyond, Singq pretty chilled out here. It's all about securing their own CS. They understand they can't do too much about this Bristleback IO combination, so they probably won't even try. Just secure your own farm and do it that way. Deal with him later on. Meanwhile, mid, nothing to say again. Being harassed by Quinn, but is not going to drop. He's okay.
Is fairly low, and Quinn already has the bottle, so a top up when watering might allow him to just look for that final push onto nothing to say, as long as he lands his remnant. He's been fairly on point. Again, the Quinn special here on Void Spirit. I can say it's going to have to be a little bit careful, though he's going to be topped up by his own watering. One bracer up, going to be a little bit more durable. Second bracer not too far off. And he is still keeping up in farm, despite all the harassment from Quinn. Nothing to say is at least finding his CS.
That he is. Again, this is a specialty pick from Quinn. I mean, that Void Spirit, he knows it like the back of his hand. Loves this hero. Nothing to say though on the Kunkka. Even more experience when it comes to the pirate himself. Is bot lane again. Yuan getting a little bit low here on the Bristleback, but is going to be okay. And you've got the IO there from MSS, plenty of regen available. But as long as Faith Beyond securing his own creeps, he's more than happy with this. He just wants his XP and his farm up. Do you think he picks up a Spirit Vessel here for the side of it? In fact, hold that thought, because top lane, Y in trouble, is going to give first blood away. Leslau, very fire up, stick charge up, is going to walk from Ame. As Sparta is also going to be able to get away. Ame not able to secure either kill here top lane. And meanwhile, bottom lane, this Tiny dropping rather low, but Singq going to be fine to walk out. First blood the way of Soniqs.
Yeah,
Ame.
Great start.
Ame, reflection does go down. Fada is going to be able to secure. Is that worth for Soniqs though, John? It's a 2-for-1, but you found the TB.
I'd say it's all right. Yeah, you're not too upset about that trade. You are still putting a dent in Ame's farm. He's kind of struggling on this top lane just a bit, not as much as you'd expect. The offlaners are definitely having a better time in this game in terms of CS. So you're doing the damage you want to do onto Ame while he's not quite geared up with the stat item. He's still very vulnerable to the minus armor from the Swarm, and you just kind of want to leverage that. And that does mean LGD, though, I do have a slight level advantage from that exchange. That should allow Y to harass out a little bit more, but they are actually really geared up here on LGD. Still 2 sentries on Y, just ready to go track Fata wherever he runs.
Absolutely. Again, chasing down Y here on this Dazzle. This time Leslau couldn't break the gap on the Dawnbreaker, so Y going to be okay to survive. Really watch their positioning very carefully here on the side of LGD, because top lane, it's just so dangerous when you break the gap with the Celestial Hammer from Leslau. Even as the TB, you just can't really take that much damage from this Dawnbreaker. That's why. Move in a little bit, but Fada is going to be there with the Swarm and forces him back away. Mid lane, still such an even affair here between Nothing to Say and Quinn. Just 1 CS difference between the two. Very, very close matchup, and There's going to be an X out here from Nothing to Say onto Quinn, but it shouldn't really lead to much. Just a bit of a threatening X here for Quinn. Though he won't flinch, he's just fine on the Void Spirit. We'll just walk away.
Just gonna be perfectly safe. Level 6s are up on both sides, so you can get aggressive here.
I mean, Quinn seems like he wants to try and make a play. There is help incoming. MSS is going to show up. Let's go for the tether. There's Nothing to Say now. Will be jump, but got the boat out in time. Stilfada is also going to join in and Nothing to Say. We'll drop again as Sparta immediately out with the tips onto Nothing to Say. Meanwhile, though, Leslau is going to drop top lane, so they do at least capitalize by finding the Dawnbreaker.
Yeah, they're getting something out of the side lanes with all the movement down towards mid. Unfortunately, for Nothing to Say, he did try to TP out there, Mike. He's going to have to walk back towards mid. That's going to be a lot of time for Quinn to just build up. And for Nothing to Say, I mean, it's not as bad as the Zeus game, but still maybe not the start you'd want. Dropping those kills, dropping that one death over to Quinn. So Quinn just setting the tone of the game quite nicely, going to his Witchblade off the back of that. You are still happy enough in LGD for the space of Ame. Like, this Terrorblade is farming really damn fast, especially when you compare it to Ywar. Ywar's lane a lot slower in comparison to game 1, and it's just not able to do as much. So you're going to have to invest a little bit more on that Bristleback to hit its timings. Vanguard is up at 7 minutes. Pretty good timing still, but just doesn't feel as quick as it did in game 1.
Definitely a little bit slower, that's for sure. Faith Beyond has been doing a decent job here in the bot lane of just keeping up and actually outpacing the farm of Ywar. Still 3-3, very slight net worth lead the way of LGD. Very reminiscent of what happened in game 1, at least for the earlier stages. Just a very even matchup between the two teams. Bot lane, more rotations coming out as Y. It's going to be there on the Dazzle now as well. They might try to set up for this this tier 1 tower. Oh, Quinn. Got a copper torrent there from the Nothing to Say, but won't mind. In fact, he'll jump right back in and give way more harassment back. No care in the world here from Quinn. The bottom lane, it's going to drop here. Faith Beyond, he's popped the Exorcism. No saving it. No defense to come.
Yeah, and that's what LGD needs to play around. Just use that push threat coming out from Faith Beyond. Open up the map more. Ensure there's room for Ame to switch farming areas if need be. And so far, no threat onto Ame though. They're not really playing on top of that Terrorblade. Although Quinn is around with the Invis here.
He is. There are 3 heroes from LGD. They're almost prepped for this. Quinn, I think he was spotted underneath that sentry ward by Shinkyu there for a moment. He bait from LGD as Ame gonna get jumped. They're waiting very patiently, ready to protect Ame whenever. Quinn, Sunder is there. Leslau, he's the one to cop it, but he'll TP right out as Quinn. He just keeps moving in. Another Astral Step charge. Solar Guardian is there. So is the Shallow Grave, but Leslau, he's back in. Ame goes down. Now the Starbreaker into the boat, but Leslau dropping low himself as Faith Beyond is going to join the team fight. A 1-for-1 so far in the favor of Soniqs. So LGD continue to try and pursue and punish Soniqs, but it's still going to be a favorable trade their way.
Yeah, that's unfortunate for Ame. He opted the Sunder, I think, a lot earlier than they expected to, especially for Y. So he had the Shallow Grave ready, but saving play wasn't going to amount to much without the Sunder ready. And you're really happy on Soniqs. He put a dent on Ame just a bit, but he's not dissuaded. Has Metamorphosis, lining up for mid, lining up for a shove.
Trying with this tier 1 tower. Ame. Look into it. There's Mel. Gonna stop him with the Celestial Hammer.
Gold from my chest.
There you go again. Nothing to say. Let's get caught out there for a moment. He's gonna be fine to back off. LGD, very cautious here of Soniqs. Nothing to say. Will pick himself up a haste rune. Will be able to walk his way out.
Yeah, this is a lot of space Soniqs is creating for Ywar. Again, considering his slower laning start, he's got a lot of jungle to just sit in, farm up with his Vanguard to help sustain. And there's no one really stopping that from LGD anymore since after the laning phase. They've just been happy enough to leave the Bristleback alone, which can cause issues. Like, this Bristle will get super tanky. It is going to be a straight Ags rush for your war. No need for the Hood of Defiance in this game, and once that Ags is up, it's still the same story.
Yeah, Leslau gonna get caught out here, nothing to say. Nice X back into the boat. Is gonna be able to find the Dawnbreaker. Nice kill here for LGD. They have popped the Exorcism for this, so maybe they try to go onto that top tier 1 tower. They will.
Radiant structures are fortified.
Soniqs.
Radiant
They are
structures
around, but
is
not
under
really in a
attack.
position to try and defend until that ulti is gone. They are waiting patiently, but doesn't seem like they're going to be able to punish. In fact, now nothing to say. He did spot out Fada. That'll be another one to go down for Soniqs. It's LGD. Going for more now. Down a bot lane, Arme. He got caught out with the shallow grave. It's going to make it in
Radiant's
time.
tower is under attack.
Just in the nick of time to allow the Sunder. The LGD, they'll keep going for more now. After you are with the relocate, is there from MSS to save? Oh no, it's into the triangle.
Oh.
Nothing to say, was waiting the whole time. He got MSS, but now he's the one in danger. Yawar will turn right back around. Nothing to say. Trying to outsmart the side of Soniqs, but you got an IO, you give your Kunkka away. It's not a good trade.
He had no backup. Fit Beyond too low on mana to play. They catch outs in queue.
And they do. The Tiny gonna try to run. Silence from Faith Beyond gonna help out. No actual step charges available for Quinn at the moment, but they may not need it. Syncue still gonna drop here on the Tiny as now Y shows up. Trying to save the day with the shallow grave, but he might be another death to go the way of LGD. But no, they want his courier instead. Let's accept the easier kickoff. A 6-7. 2K advantage still held by LGD, but it feels like anyone's game.
Still really, really open. Very even across the board. Almost every core from both sides are just pretty much equal in net worth. The only outlier is Leslau, who has had to sacrifice some farm in order to make some space for his team. But even then, build up into the shard, and BKB should still be lined up for. LGD, they just need a little bit more onto Ame. You might want the Manta style here to get a lot more stats. The Scotty timing you mentioned in draft is the key for the Terrorblade to really get going. And once that's up and running, should be fairly comfy on that pause. One, nothing to say as well as inching towards his BKB. Has a good stack to clear out in the Ancients. So he's going to be extra durable. In the front, he's not going to be as threatened by Quinn's kit. Once that spell immunity is going in, that cuts a lot of the burst of Soniqs. Like, they are reliant on Quinn just getting the stuns off the Remnant, getting the steps off, and getting to dissimulate. Not going to be something that Nothing to Say worries about once this full BKB is done.
Certainly not. Things are still going swimmingly here for both sides, really. Top lane Syncue. Nah, he's going to be alright. You are. Not going to try and go for the kill attempt. Mid lane. LGD. Group up here. Loves to try and find Quinn, and the X is going to be out. Into the Silent and the boat, so Quinn should drop and does. Nice little bait their lane from LGD as they go for more now with the Exorcism out. On the MSS, they might just find an IO for their trouble, but a nice tether away. It's going to allow him to get out, so instead it's into the mid-tier 1 tower for LGD. Be a rather easy kickoff here for LGD. Nothing to stop them. No defense to come out from Soniqs, as they're not really ready to keep fighting yet. Still let this one go down. LGD looking much stronger than game number 1. We'll start looking for a bit more in that Radiant Triangle. You've got Yawar around. They won't make their entrance in. Yawar, by the way, getting rather close to the Ags, but again, it does feel slower than last game, that's for sure.
Yeah, and you remember last game, it was fairly quick, and he had Hood of Defiance on top of the Vanguard before the Ags. So definitely not as speedy here for Soniqs. Although, Fate.
Remnants out, Faith Beyond might just fight back with the silences there, but Leslie stay with the Solar Guardian. In the meantime, mid lane, Fada does die in the Weaver, but it's a better pick off once again for Soniqs. They'll be able to try and settle that top tier 1 tower now. So LGD having a hunt around for Quinn. No blink up on the Tiny yet, so Syncue can't really break the gap, but nothing to say. Might find an X very soon on Quinn. But for now, they just kind of ignore each other. Quinn being a Bit of a creep away from the Kunkka. Be enough for LGD.
Just trading back and forth. And what we're seeing from LGD right now is just they're playing with their tempo really well. The key thing has been if Faith Beyond shows up for a fight with the EXO, they go instantly for the push. Quinn gets caught out here though.
He does.
Ah.
It's gonna be okay.
Yeah, not fully committing. I think they'd really want to secure that kill with the DP silence from Faith Beyond. And not gonna be able to really fully commit. Nice double damage rune to find though. A nice pickup for nothing to say, and should allow them to play a little bit more aggressive. There is a ward guarding that entrance onto the high ground triangle though. So maybe not gonna push their luck there, but now they could possibly get aggressive with that X here.
They may, nothing to say. Go for the X out onto Fada. Quinn is around. Keep in mind, Yuar just picked up the Aghanim Scepter, but isn't there in time yet. Yuar making his way over now as LGD will continue trying to fight. There's your Ag's reveal now. Often nothing to say, but they won't make the jump in. Not going too far as the X-Pac into the torrent is out again, and Faith Beyond has the ulti up. Yuar, has he gone too far? Relocate was there, but cancelled by the Yule Scepter as Yuar. Still trying to fight, but nothing to say. We'll just keep rushing forward onto the Bristleback. They have the X-Pac, and they do commit it as Yuar will eventually go down to the Tidebringer hit as MSS still trying. In goes Quinn, trying to salvage the situation, but there's no salvaging. Leslau, even coming in at the last moment. Can they get anything for their trouble? Torrent is down for the Dawnbreaker. Nothing to say. He'll be targeted by Quinn, but the Shallow Grave is out. Leslau still going down. Full drop. Still trying for the Kunkka. Avalanche is out. Quinn, can he get it done? Finally finds nothing to say, but what's it going to cost Soniqs? Simulate out. Won't be enough. A huge win for LGD here in the mid lane. Soniqs, they just kept trying to fight, kept throwing bodies at LGD, but it just didn't prove to be enough.
And that was LGD playing a 4 versus 5, Mike. Ame was just sticking down bot, pushing out that lane, getting a lot of damage done onto the tier 2, and just keeps farming up. LGD with a very comfy lead now, 8-14, 7k up. Around the same position we saw Soniqs in the last game at around this time. But definitely finding a stronger start here for LGD, taking control of the game very early on. Ame with a full manta up is feeling a lot more safe as well. He's got the stats to just not be instantly bursted down, and might be gunning for that Scotty you mentioned earlier on. So a smooth ride up for Ame. Everything kind of lining up, and we are seeing issues with Soniqs. Like for Soniqs, it really just boils down to this one thing. They really lack control. Like, it's all down to Quinn. It's on him to just get an Aether Remnant and maybe bait heroes in for the Solar Guardian into the Starbreaker. But beyond that, you're not holding any of these heroes down from LGD. They will start from the Roshan. Yuar does hit fairly hard, but LGD are aware this time.
Up in, Quinn. What's nothing to say? The Kunkka, BKB'd up, but copying a fair bit of damage, but what a big toss up here from the tiny Vada. He drops, Quinn, he'll go down as well. Faith Beyond, just chasing Yuar. Relocate, barely gonna save the life of the Bristle. Roshan is open now for LGD. They'll move their way in. Ame will get right to work. They even found an IO with the relocate back. Roshan will be no contest for LGD now. They wipe out the side of Soniqs. There's no way for them to try and counter this now.
Now, damage output of Ame is high enough to get the stun. And it just boils back to that again. Soniqs, their control is just lacking. They couldn't kill off nothing to say. The Grave saves them in time. They turn around, they find all the kills they want, and they just keep running at you. Like, it's just so much pressure to put on to one hero to make all these plays. Like, Quinn has to land the most perfect remnants, all crew has to be there, they're gonna try.
Gonna try mid lane, nothing to say, again being targeted on the Kunkka, dropping very low but the Shallow Grave Y, gonna save the day once again as Faith Beyond, gonna pop the Exorcism and nothing to say, he's out of there, onto the Solar Guardian, they'll at least find the Dazzle. Faith Beyond now, between a rock and a hard place, Leslau, what a Starbreaker, onto two, but Singyu with an Avalanche out, it's not gonna be enough though, he will drop his Ame, he's a sitting duck, he has the Aegis up, but he's gonna have to man fight this. They'll buy back on the tiny. Jinkyu trying to move his way back in and save the day as Ame is going to be able to back off for now, but in they go again, Soniqs. not letting their foot off the pedal here is nothing to say. We'll go after the IO. MSS will drop. Leslau, he'll move in onto Arme. They've got the Terrorblade locked down again. Meanwhile, Q might die back here, but not quite. He'll walk away as Arme. Still just can't run. Has to fight back for Yawar. He goes too far. They at least find the Terrorblade as a trade. As Quinn, can he get nothing to say? It does seem like he may just. But the tier 2 tower is hitting away. They can't keep this fight going. LGD somewhat managed to fight back, but it still seems like an overall win going the way of Soniqs.
They just managed to take control really well. They isolate Ame, leave him for last. They know Metamorphosis is down. Didn't manage to have any presence with his 2 lives, unfortunately, as Metamorphosis just faded from that Roche fight. And LGD just didn't have the follow-through. A bit staggered in the initiation, and Soniqs just run down and managed to make it work. As that fight extended, of course, the nasal goo just piled on. The bristle was just constantly sustained. Losing, I can say, meant that he didn't have that great way of holding down the IO to take away that sustain. And LGD swing it a little bit back Soniqs' way. Soniqs going to be very pleased with themselves. No Aegis to help secure Ame. But I think the play now for LGD is just have Ame farm until the Sky. They were forcing the issues earlier on with the Aegis, but now it's just back to farming. And if Soniqs don't hunt down Ame, they're going to have to contend with a massive spike coming out from that Terrorblade soon. As I can say, we'll even find a tier 2 bot with the little room they were given out here.
Yeah. 22 minutes in, 12-20 now, but an 8k advantage the way of LGD. It hasn't been the smoothest game in the world, but it's going for LGD here, and as you can see, 86%, or rather 88% the way of LGD for now. Certainly, you'd have to agree with that. It just feels like Soniqs have kind of missed their timing with this bristleback draft. A big smoke up again here. LGD, not done. The rush is 4 towards the top side of the map. Might run right into Quinn. They'll get the high ground advantage. Q gonna jump in. Avalanche toss is there. They've got the silence. They'll have Quinn down. MSS couldn't get the relocate in time. And now that'll mean the IO should drop as well.
Yep. Just a little bit of a freebie. Not the biggest deal in the world. Still more kills to go the way of LGD. High 5 out from MSS. MSS just, showing off the hand. Not going to get it reciprocated. And then LGD off the back of that, from a 6k lead, bring it back to 9k. So they kind of compensate for that earlier loss. Ame, one part away from that full Scotty here, Mike. And at that point, I really don't know if you have enough to handle Ame at that point. Like, he could just go for a BKB afterwards. That fixes pretty much all of his issues, and he's just going to be free to dance around in the middle. Going for the tier 2 top, no defense.
There's Lau. X will catch him. Avalanche is there as well. Yawar, though, is going to show up. Boat will be thrown out by Quinn. He'll jump in as well. Onto the Tiny. Q going to be survived by the Shallow Grave. Yawar will keep going now, nothing to say. Trying to fight back here, but here comes Ame on that Terrorblade, and he's terrifying at the moment. You've got to run if you're Soniqs. They can't force this fight. Yawar going to get X'd up, though. Brought back by nothing to say into the loving arms of Ame, but Leslau is going to try and zone them out, and will force them back on the side of LGD.
Invisibility.
I'm going to say barely surviving on the Kunkka throughout that fight.
You're playing on knife's edge. Lots of back and forth. No one really losing anyone there, but it does feel like LGD committed far more. The top BKBs, they used most of their big spells. Metamorphosis is now down on Ame. Doesn't have too much time left in it. Just back to the farm game for him. Scotty will come out in the next few seconds, though, although Soniqs are just going to look to push while they know some of those BKBs are down.
They can get done. Mid lane. X is out onto the Dawnbreaker. Q may get caught on the Tiny, and will eventually going down here to Soniqs, so not a bad start. Keep in mind, he doesn't have buyback available on the Tiny, so might open them up a little bit for that mid-tier 2 tower. But lines are being drawn up towards the top tier 2 tower, so they'd rather go for that, secure outpost, and maybe play for the next Roshan if you are the Radiant team. LGD, they'll just sit back and wait for their Tiny to respawn back up. Soniqs, it should be a free tier 2. I doubt there's a defense coming. And if there is, Well, LGD might get cut off here by Leslau. Smoke. He won't move forward yet. Go now, LGD. Slowly creeping up. Metamorphosis is on cooldown for Arme, but they are going to go for the X into the boat, onto MSS to get started. A very nice pickoff. In fact, that's going to be enough because the Soniqs, they're not really all there. Quinn and Leslau, they ran down towards the mid lane, and that T2 tower is going to remain defended.
Great defense coming out from LGD. Finding the equation that kind of carries Soniqs through that sustain from MSS, take him out, and UR can't really hang around the area as well all by his lonesome. So LGD hold on. 11k still up. BKB coming next for Ame. Sheepstick coming out for nothing to say afterwards as well. And once you do have that additional control, things start to line up. Fate Beyond did use his earlier BKB charge to not the biggest effect, but still has an 8-second duration on him. And Sin Q is going for the value Lotus Orb. So you will have some ways of helping your teammates out here, preventing them from just getting run down with the control. For Soniqs, Quinn is inching towards his ag. Still 2,000 gold away though. But once you have that AoE silence, it could force some preemptive BKBs to be used. And then you can just kind of go backwards here on Soniqs, wait for it to fade, and re-engage. LGD though, going for a smoke play.
They are. LGD once again get aggressive here. Quinn seems to be the target down the bot lane, and they should have the jump perfectly. Runs right into the Tiny. He just gets blown up completely. LGD now knowing the Void Spirit is gone for another 45. We'll move on to the high ground, it seems, through the bot lane, and they have meta this time around if Ame wants to pop it. He might just wait to see if a fight is going to break out first. Finn down again without buyback like we mentioned, John. So this is going to be a free Rax to go the way of LGD. But they can't really go for mid-Rax because there is still the T2 mid tower. But a massive win for LGD. So they will head into the mid T2 tower very soon.
Yeah, gotta have that creep wave catch up though. And EXO should fade by the time the creeps make their way down, but I'll try to rip through it. Backdoor is going to sustain. Smoke out from Soniqs though.
There goes the mid T2. No protecting that. They are still going to try. Moving in onto Ame. Focus down the Terror Blade, but he's willing to fight back. Skadi up onto the Bristle he goes. MSS will try to keep the Bristle back alive. In the meantime though, Fada is going to drop the Weaver as they continue going. Yuwa will be able to run away, but now with the meta prop, LGD certainly going to go back into the mid T3 tower and probably the mid Rax as well.
What?
They do end up finding the Void Spirit. Quinn, Yuwa, how do you salvage it now? Ame, after MSS, has got the IO down. Keep in mind, Quinn still has no buyback available in this Void Spirit. So it's a very, very rough defense to come here for Soniqs. Onto the mid-racks they go. LGD, suddenly 2 racks is up. Or maybe even mega creeps.
They don't have that much time left in the meta, so it'll be a bit of a slower process, but just without Quinn, Soniqs just doesn't have that jump attempt.
Oh, they're onto the Bristleback and they've got him. Yuwa getting caught with his pants down. Leslau, even going for a run towards the north, is going to get caught eventually. No way out of this one. No buyback available on him either. Soniqs, how do you defend now? At least they've got Quinn back, but it's still a 4v5 scenario. Without their Dawnbreaker, LGD will be happy to move in. There goes Singq onto the Void Spirit Quinn. Look how fast he goes down. He just barely get up and no, nothing to say. Cleans him up. That's the GG call being made. A draw will be forced here, and LGD will take game 2 in 29 minutes in a much more convincing fashion than, say, game number 1.
They come out with stronger comfort here on LGD's end, going back to some tried and tested staples. And for a Soniqs part, you know, they try to go back into that IO, they go into the Bristleback once more, and Quinn on his special Void Spirit was making some work happen, but there was enough play there from LGD. It wasn't a completely shut out lane for nothing to say. He had a lot more to bring out there.